Now we'd love to have your questions, and we'd love to know who you are, as well as where you're from. I'm just coming down here so I can see anybody like to. Oh, there's one here from an old friend of mine. But just tell us who you are.
Well, you told me to ask a question.
Yeah, I did.
This is in exchange for a free gig, you see. My name's Tom Robble and I'm old. Just a question for our friend from BT. I just wonder if there's any connection between the billions you're spending on sporting rights and the fact that my BT bills are about to go up by 3 times inflation.
What an excellent and much asked question. If you look at general pricing in the broadband market, you'll see it's only gone in consumers' interest. So I think we're one of the cheapest category. We're one of the cheapest sort of triple play provider kind of countries in the world. You know, go to America, you'll pay 3 times the amount you pay for your broadband here. You've got competitors in our market charging just over £1 a month for broadband. It's an incredibly price-sensitive market, and the competition is extreme. It's the most competitive telecoms market in the world. So I think we're the most expensive in the market. I think you'll think if you look through history, we put our prices up like most companies do. I think if you look over history, it hasn't gone up disproportionately since we've done the sport deal. And I think we've given the value back to consumers by giving it free to customers. And if you look in that particular market, consumers who are interested in sport have got a much better deal now. And it's actually forced the whole market to reassess the way they deliver sport into the UK. So I don't know, I think there's always gives and takes, but I think overall this has benefited the telecoms industry sector, pricing consumers in a big way. You may not agree, but kind of.
Can I just say,
yes,
you can fly to Moscow for less than money on BBC.
So always selling. That's very good. Well, look. I mean, in the end, if consumers aren't getting good value, I'm sure they'll go somewhere else. And right now, I'm smiling because thanks to coming to one of these BT forum here a few years ago, I wisely put a little bit of my pension fund into BT shares, and they're doing very nicely. So. Yeah. So thank you very much, Tom. Right, more questions. Yes, there's a question hand over here.
Hello there.
Please, go on.
Just hold it, it's like karaoke. Hold it here. Hi, I'm Kevin. I'm from the Gary Byrne. Question for, is it Mark from Cedric?
Yes.
It was a question really. Retail is obviously quite known for being very fast moving in terms of briefs and turnaround. And I think you mentioned for the Sainsbury's campaign last year that actually you started to collect that footage the preceding Christmas. So that strikes me as quite a bold model within your organisation, which I imagine you quite often get given a brief on a Friday morning, and the longest of long term it's got to be out by Monday. So how did you go about selling that model into your organisation? Because I'm presuming you must have had a Christmas 2012 campaign running at the same time as briefing your Christmas 2013 campaign, and having worked on a lot of retail Christmas campaigns over the years, you're normally briefing them and working on them around about June through August. So it seems like I'm just interested in how you managed to galvanise so much of your organisation to work on something and be so forward thinking, and congratulations, by the way, 16 months out from when you delivered it.
Yeah, sure. I think the way we try to run it is there's sort of 2 speeds. There's day-to-day retail, which I sort of call warp speed. And it genuinely is, actually react tomorrow. We can be impressed within 12 hours if we need to be on something. But then there are actually, hang on, the Christmas is Christmas. It's coming around every year. You shouldn't be surprised on that. So we generally try to run it in 2 areas. So, Christmas, Easter, summer, the big retail calendar events, you've got to get ahead of time. And actually, increasingly, if you want to integrate them with supply chains of the Far East, and we're increasing a non-food business, you've got to be ahead of time to impact that. And then, in between that, We're working on stuff this week and next week. So it's important to have those two speeds. It's important the agencies recognise it's important there's different people on them as we work through it. And then you're quite right. How do we manage internally? I just didn't tell anyone. It's very simple. I think we may have don't worry, we've got something, and then we just sort of went and did it in terms of that bit.
We've got a question. Yeah, there, please.
Question to Peter, Jess Facey from Shell. A lot of your talk was on customer focus and simplicity. A lot of organisations focused on customer first, so data. Just trying to understand how EasyJet really focuses on getting customer data, but also simplicity around the whole data. So just I think a lot of organisations struggling on just collecting more and more.
Sure. Yeah, so we did data very badly. We had multiple databases across Europe, so we've moved to one database. It now sits with Havas. And we overlay all our market research data on top of our behavioural data so we can begin to understand how satisfied certain customers are. So there's only one place of data. It's very easy to get one simple kind of solution. And then we've moved all the CRM program on kind of trigger campaigns. So based around your behaviour, we will then send an email out. So N number of days before takeoff, N number of days after takeoff as kind of communication. And it basically works on the principle that those customer needs are sort of common right across Europe, and all we do is sort of change for the language for a lot of that stuff. And then separately, we begin to use that data to begin to drive pricing decisions internally, to begin to drive insight decisions. So there's just sort of one source of it really that we just keep going back to. That sounds a bit crap, but it's we try and keep it simple.
One of the things that we did note when we were doing the judging for this year's Marketing Leader of the Year, the timing was rather fortunate for Peter, but just around the time we were having this debate, Michael O'Leary of Ryanair, no less, or the leaders of Ryanair, announcing their own annual results, actually congratulated EasyJet, which was one of the most, especially coming from Ryanair, but I mean actually was one of the most extraordinary things I've ever seen in any sort of annual report, that they're actually congratulating a competitor. And one of the things they specifically congratulated EasyJet on was in fact the improvement in their digital marketing. So there we are. So something has been done very well in that field, which I'm sure deserves further study. Now, other questions, if we can, out there? I've got a question. While just getting that one out, actually, I have a general question for you to be just thinking about. You can, a moment, what each of you might have learned from anybody else this evening. I hope you were, I'm sure you were listening as well as talking, but what you thought of any of the other presentations. And actually specifically for you, Mark, because there's a sort of elephant in the room when it comes to Christmas campaigns. Well, we haven't got John Lewis up this year. They have, of course, also won prizes in our awards. So what about you versus John Lewis? Because actually I struggled a little bit recently when I was looking at their data and your data, because they seem to be showing they were growing massively at Christmas compared with you. But do you have a sort of view about you versus you versus John Lewis?
I'll answer the first part of your question,
okay.
Which is what John Lewis. I get asked this a lot. I know Craig and the guys know extremely well. I used to work with Adam and Eve, and they've done amazing things over the 5 years. It's a flattering comparison, but I'll probably leave it with the final remark of very focused on sustained success over a period of time, which I think is what they've done.
So you didn't really have them in mind, or they weren't. You didn't see them as a very sort of direct competitor.
No, we spent a lot of time. We spent a lot of time from analysts and people getting asked about our competitors. Mm-hmm. It's amazing how much in the supermarket they want you to talk about this campaign, and the reply is always, "We just try to stay focused on being a better Sainsbury's."
Okay.
And that's as simple as we get with it.
Okay, we've got a question I think down here, over here.
Hi, Rob Painter from Sky Bet. Guy from Paddy Power. Be surprised now. It's not actually a question for you, so you're off the hook. Actually, a question from I think it's Peter, isn't it, from EasyJet. I'm just interested in some of the things you did as a business to align everyone internally, and any tips and the kind of elements of that program to align the whole business behind one idea.
So I think the big thing was getting all the board to actually co-create the core proposition of easy and affordable. So you couldn't say it was owned by any section of the organisation. It was owned by ops, finance, IT. Everybody was kind of involved in that process. And then we went and shared that with the top 60 And we got them to sort of re-edit that, but it was only 3 words, so there wasn't really an awful lot of places they could potentially go with it. And then it's just been boringly consistent. We keep saying it, so there's no analyst presentation, there's no internal communication, there is no speech that Carolyn gives or anybody else in the organisation gives that doesn't keep coming back to that again and again and again. And because the external communication is aligned behind it as well, it just gets constantly reinforced. So we don't, what I'm basically saying is we don't have competing lines, we don't have competing thoughts, we just keep it very, very focused.
Okay, actually, oh, sorry, question here, please. Yeah, we can have a microphone.
Hello, Laura Wilson. Hi, Jan. Hello. I just wanted to speak to those of you who talked about your agency relationship so positively, how you have developed those so that you trust each other so well and you've kind of maximised them.
Well, they're all looking all embarrassed up there, aren't they? A pair of little boys. I think it's fundamentally about trust. So I am lucky in that, you know, Michael is one of the brightest planners in London, and Peaky has, within VCCP, taken EasyJet to his heart and has really sponsored us through the whole agency. And it's just fundamentally based on trust.
And you appointed them, Peter, I think, right? Did you?
Did,
I mean,
yeah,
you said that you had a review, because actually my recollection is that EasyJet's advertising used to be absolutely terrible because they did it themselves, didn't they?
Well, God, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think, well, obviously,
I mean,
it was the famous breast ad,
yeah.
Weapons of Mass Distraction, which I think was done internally. It wasn't really an award winner. But no, but it was an agency before we kind of moved it on. But I think we've been on a journey together, and I think one of the things I would say is that the guys from VCCP don't just do our advertising; they are very involved in the organisation. You know, Carrigan would greet them as friends. You know, the IT director knows who they are, and so they do lots of projects with us that keep them put them in a more general box than just the advertising.
Okay. And I'm going to answer the question on behalf of the two in the middle, because you're both with AMV, right? Need we say more? I mean, you know, the saintly Scylla, how could you not trust the saintly Scylla, and so on? But so just jump to you, Rory. Who do you work with as an agency?
On Rainbow Laces, we have 2 main agencies, CP&B, who do most of our stuff, but on Rainbow Laces, Lucky Generals. It's a small startup with the second best planner in London, called Andy, and Danny Brooke-Taylor is probably the best creative in London, and the guys are fantastic. We completely trust them. They understand us as a brand. I think, you know, it's quite empowering for these guys to be able to, you know, let themselves go. Other brands, you know, you have to reel them in, but often it's us reeling them in, which is quite incredible. And, you know, they get the bigger picture here. There's a lot of, as I'm sure our Sky Bet friend here would attest, there's a lot of, you know, bad stuff that comes out about the gambling industry, you know, in general, you know, the crack cocaine of high streets, the lovely name that was given to the FOPTI machines, the clustering, the issues with legislation, and, you know, there's a lot of bad stuff coming out. Rainbow Laces is a genuinely good news story that supersedes all that. It's above sort of party politics, and, you know, you mentioned Michael O'Leary and Ryanair, you know, calling you out in their annual report. William Hill were tweeting their support for Rainbow Laces. Sky Bet sponsors the Football League. The Football League are very much on board. William Hill's a sponsor of the FA. The FA are on board. So, you know, this is a good news story coming out from a gambling company.
Very good. Okay, I loved your statement about ask for forgiveness rather than permission. So maybe that's one to take. It's sort of in my mind too. I'll say, when's the time you've most had to ask for forgiveness? But actually, I think time is pressing us a little bit. So if you can just come back to that question I sort of floated a moment ago, whether anything this evening that you've kind of taken out from the others that you think you might, because you're all stars, you're all winners. But anything you've picked up this evening that.
I think it's Peter's thought and simplicity. You know, our business is getting more complex around banking and mobile, and the number of the data and the nectar. So I think it's that's just a thought about thinking about that, how we make it more simple.
Yeah, no, it's funny. His slides, of course, weren't very simple, but the thought was, you know, brilliantly simple. So that was a good thought. Any well, you pointed that out. I'm just playing back what you said. So
just building on agency relationships, I was really interested, and may talk to Peter later about how he works with his agency, because I think we're probably quite a difficult client to work with for AMV. Right to we've got marketers right to the top of our companies, you know, now. So everyone's quite interested in the process of marketing. So I think we have a different model to letting the guys get on with it. So it's interesting to see how that works.
Okay, good. Eddie?
And I would echo the simplicity.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff that we do where everyone goes, oh, I wish I'd thought of that. That's the simplicity. We have the, the Metro, they came out last year and said, the editor literally sat in a meeting with him and said, listen, I wish I thought of this campaign. It's so simple, it's so great, it's spot on for our, our reading demographic, and I think it is simplicity is the key.
Okay, so you've been praised for simplicity, Peter. Any thoughts on the other guys?
All three had bravery, didn't they? So to start your Christmas campaign 18 months before and kind of not know what you're getting, I think is extraordinary. I mean, what David must have gone through to keep that a free proposition in an organisation like BT must be kind of quite challenging. And then the whole Paddy Power sort of gay football juxtaposition is just like doing something very different. So there's just something about bravery, I think, isn't there? And winning as a result of being different.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, I think at that point I'm just going to very speedily wind it up by just reminding you all that the wonderful Marketing Society Excellence Awards are now open for your entries for next year. You've got until February the 6th, but this fantastic new design has been created for us by 18 Feet and Rising. There's a name for you in itself. We've roared away from 18 Feet and Rising, but we're on to the wonderful 7 Steps to Winning Heaven. I think they've all been illustrated very, very well tonight. And this was mentioned in, I think, by Mark, that yes, it is rather important to actually have some results. So presentations this evening showed results to varying degrees, but we asked them to be very pithy and keep it down to 10 minutes. But I can assure you that in the winning cases, yes, there absolutely were some serious results to look at, which, of course, as I say here, in an ideal world, they're also about hard numbers. I have to say we could probably press BT a little harder on the profit, that their 900 million, whatever it was, or was it 900 billion? No, 900 million investment in sport is actually returning, but nonetheless their sales figures and indeed their figures on the brand and all the other data which they're able to give us are really most impressive. But in all cases, the guys here were able to show us very impressive data. It is worth saying that 80% of the winners in our awards do come from client agency teams. It's not altogether surprising. AMV do, of course, write particularly brilliant papers, but they have some brilliant clients to work with. A lot of other agencies write great papers too, but it isn't altogether surprising that often agencies are better at shaping the story and making it really readable for the judges. Always worth pointing out at this point that don't be nervous about sharing what is really important data, because actually anything you say that shouldn't be published afterwards, then it can be kept confidential just for the judges. You would always learn from the past winners, not only like tonight, but of course by going to our wonderful library in the online clubhouse. We do think it's very, very important to make your submission easy to read. Of course, a really strong story will sort of shine out as a really strong story in any way, but I'm delighted that we have in this evening somebody who was a star last year at these awards, a very unknown name at that particular time, Notcuts Garden Centres. But the wonderful Julian Calderara is here, and his agency, a fairly modest size, calls itself Baby Grand, so it must be, if you like, fairly modest size. They actually wrote a brilliant case history on Notcuts with a very, very strong story, but the fact that it was actually really well written really helped them to win that year. And then the other message to you all, of course, is you've really got to start thinking now. Actually, you probably had to start thinking a year ago, because you're going to have a really strong story for these awards. You've already got to have got the results, but actually also in terms of planning your great award entry, then you do need to start thinking about it now, because suddenly February the 6th will be here with us incredibly quickly. But I do wish you all incredible success. I think you'd all agree, wouldn't you, that it's quite good to be going up on that stage. And it'll be even more exciting at the 30th anniversary of the Marketing Society Awards to be receiving one of these fantastic new X's that we've developed to express excellence. So if you're still tweeting, that's what you've got to do. We're now open for entries. Oh, there's a book coming out too. You'll be very pleased to know, which I think you all feature. Yes, you do all feature in this wonderful new book, which will be available in November, cunningly edited by myself. So I should be signing copies for many of you, I'm sure. And a final thanks to our hosts here at BT. It's a great place to present.